We're talking today to Ann Arbor Public Schools psychologists who've begun an online support group for parents and guardians.
I think sometimes, families or kids are surprised we have a school psychologist at the school. And typically in Ann Arbor, our role has been with testing for special ed services.
Because I think just as a group, our school psychologists are a really brilliant set of professionals that we've underutilized. So, this pandemic has given some opportunity for an underutilized resource to come to the forefront to support and provide an intervention for a need that we have in the district. And so I think that piece is really important. And hopefully, with the support that we're offering now, it can spur some opportunities for them not to be underutilized in the future.
And as Julianne was saying, we have been, as a group, wanting to expand our roles, to provide all this things that we can, because of our training, in terms of social emotional supports. And some of us have been able to do that in bits and pieces, but we would, I think as a group, like to increase our roles.
And I think what started this for me is really thinking about the struggles that I'm going through as a working parent. I have two little kids and trying to work from home. And in even just conversations with the other psychologists going through similar struggles, it really started to dawn on me that it could really benefit our students if we tried to do something that directly benefited and supported parents. Because healthier, more well parents are going to lead to healthier, more well students. And I think that we as psychologists, school psychologists, have kind of a unique role because since we do a lot of special education evaluation, and that's not going on right now, this seemed like a good opportunity to try and use some of our skills in a different way.
One of the things I've been telling parents is one of the most important things is to think about how to take care of yourself. And thinking about what you need, sort of putting on your own oxygen mask before you're trying to do that for your child. So I know that one of the things often out there is that parents need to create a schedule for their kids, but really everybody sort of needs some structure, right, in order to create some sense of normalcy with the day. And I've just been trying to encourage parents to sort of try to begin with that, and then fill in what seems manageable in trying to support their kids at home.
I think it's difficult in this age just because many of the distance learning opportunities that the students are being given are on the screen, right? So it's trying to balance between the schoolwork aspect, and then obviously there's times when kids just need downtime and free time. And I think that it's important as much as possible to incorporate the screen time for school, but also have breaks in between. I mean, you don't have to be on your screen, 6 hours doing school. You can kind of do a little bit, take a break, go do something outside, go do a puzzle, do some kind of activity. And then as much as possible, I think that parents should try and adhere to the typical screen time that they had previously, before we were involved in this pandemic and online learning. And try to adhere to that as much as possible, not make it a free reign of screen time. Of course, there's going to be times when that might be your only choice if you have a meeting or there's something, something that you personally have to do. But, I think like Jamil was saying, we're trying to encourage people to have as much structure as possible, and keeping the screen time kind of typical for them is important, I think.
It varies on the needs and the context of the family. One of the things we've, as a group, have been very aware of, and I think a lot of our colleagues just in general, is the issue of equity and how, all students can be provided what they need in terms of education, given whatever parameters exist at home. And so the kind of support and the kinds of existing structure that's at home sort of contributes to what they need. Some kids are thriving without some of the stressors of having to be around a lot of people and having to manage what the school context looks like. And then others are finding that it feels very, very restrictive, because they want to have that physical interaction and contact.
And I've also heard from parents of only children that's been a bit of a struggle, because siblings, although they all may be fighting, also have someone to play with and socialize with, whereas an only child has to either entertain themselves or have their parent entertain them. And they found that I've heard them express to me, at least, that can be pretty challenging and isolating for the child.
Concerns, and I think the two main themes that kind of emerged were how to keep their students kind of academically engaged and motivated. I think particularly at the secondary level, but that also applies to students at the elementary level. And the other one is just kind of that social connection piece that you were referring to. How do I get my students how do I have my child be engaged with other students and with their friends when we're just not in a typical time and we have to do this, via screens or phone calls or things like that. That's very different from their day-to-day routine at school. So those were two main things that kind of emerged. And just as a parent myself, I think those are very real for me too. How do you balance that? How do you have your student engaged and also be socially engaged?
As well as doing your own work at home.
Yeah, right. That's right. Yes. And the biggest question is dinner. I don't know about you guys, but I like what to make for dinner. My gosh, like the meals. I feel like a short order cook.
But it's from an episode of Chopped, because you don't have all the ingredients.
I do think that there is an unknown around some struggles that certain parents might be having, because just in how this is changing people's lives in terms of having basic needs. And there is a portion of our community that we really don't know what the struggles are or how the parents are truly doing and coping with this. And so it'll be interesting as time goes on if we can figure that piece out too, because there are those that we maybe haven't heard from or just aren't quite clear why the kid might not be engaged. And so we really don't know what the reasons are, what the hardest thing is for some parents.
Yeah, I know at my buildings that we have a number of kids we haven't really been successful in connecting with, and we're concerned, and they may be fine and just choosing not to connect, or they may be really, really struggling, and we wish we could support them more.
I mean, we definitely have many families who have decided not to, I think, engage right now because it's overwhelming.
Right.
It's overwhelming to do the distance learning. It's overwhelming to receive all these emails. It's overwhelming to think about anything besides, getting their basic needs met.
And the transitions, the kids who are going from to a new building, or seniors. A lot of them are seniors missing out on senior year.
About older kids, and so talking about being bored, when a kid says I'm bored, that can mean a lot of different things. I have older kids at home myself, and so I'm trying to read the tea leaves because it isn't always forthright what's sort of under the surface. But I think, when a kid says they're bored, trying to figure out what that's about. I know that I have talked to older kids who are struggling with, for example, waking up in the afternoon and then feeling like the day is wasted. And then that makes them feel not, truly engaged with doing anything, and so trying to figure out how to insert some normalcy and some expectations so that they can feel like there's purpose in the day, can sometimes be helpful. But just watching, kids sleeping all the time, talking about being bored, for older kids anyway, those can be things to watch out for.
And other signs of depression are, not having an appetite, not wanting to engage in any activities at home, just wanting to sleep all day. And for younger kids, it could be more acting out. There could be a lot more acting out versus, sleeping all day, right? So sometimes the depression comes out in different ways for younger kids.
I think one of the challenging aspects during this time is, it's a change in behavior that kind of tips you off. But there's changes in behavior just normally right now because everything's different. Mm-hmm. So some of the things that are the signs of depression or anxiety are also normal reactions to these major changes.
I was just going to say, I think that sometimes there's such a negative connotation with, anxiety, depression, but to be honest, these are emotions that everyone experiences and that they are typical, right? If we didn't have any anxiety in our life, we wouldn't be propelled to do anything or to get anything done. So I think it's just the level and degree of it. And of course, some depression or some sadness during this time, missing out on activities or not being able to do the things that you typically do or enjoy, or seeing the people that you enjoy. That is a normal and it's okay to experience those feelings, right? I think it's when it becomes to a degree where it's starting to interfere in your life or interfere in your kind of functioning, that's when it's more of a red flag goes off. And like Jamil and Kathy were talking about, it might be a little bit more challenging under these circumstances to kind of figure out if it's kind of interfering, if they're sleeping until 1, because they have the time to sleep till 1. So yeah, it's a little bit more tricky figuring out the degree of it, but I do think it's important for parents to recognize and to be able to share with their kids that it's okay to feel these feelings and to express them and to discuss them, because as parents, I think we feel very similarly, right? I mean, there are days when I have cried over, not being able to go and see my parent, and it's hard.
We have a Google form where parents sign up, and we want to limit the groups to a smaller size so that it can be a little more intimate and, people can feel a little more comfortable sharing. I think that works better in a smaller group than in, a much larger group. So we're limiting the size to 12 parents or guardians in each group. And what we are then going to do after the Google sign-up sheets is form the groups based on whether they're elementary or secondary parents and guardians. And then we'll be sending out links to the parents for the Google Meet 30 minutes before the groups meet.